this lesson. It is yet another session we're having. It's on continuation of what we had just started. Those who have just continued to join us, we are already moving forward. As Yaka and Educare, we're offering yet free learning classes from Senior 1 up to Senior 6 for the secondary section, and P1 up to P6. I mean PP6 up for the primary section. For the secondary section, it's only Senior 6 that is yet not in. I am teacher Yando Amos. My contact is there, 0789 848626. It's the contact I even use there on the WhatsApp. Be able to give you my email, those who love to give actually some of the assignments to through the email. I got those concerns. We are moving on to continue from where we had actually stopped. We did learn about how you're supposed to perform as regards doing your work in the laboratory. We did learn about what the laboratory is. We learned about what is in the laboratory. But now, as we enter or before doing anything in the laboratory, there are these 4 questions that I want us to ask ourselves, or you should be asking yourself before doing anything in the laboratory. The first question, this will go to Isaac. Isaac, I want you to read for us the first question. Just the question alone.
What are the hazards?
What are the hazards? So, which means when you enter into the laboratory or before doing anything concerning the laboratory, you should be asking yourself, what are the hazards? This can be chemical or physical or electrical or even biological. The second question goes to Cedric. Cedric, could you read for me the second question?
What are the worst possible things that?
What are the worst possible things that could go wrong? Should be. The third question?
How will I deal with them?
How will I deal with them? See? And the last one, John. John, the last one.
What are
the last question? What are the practices?
Facilities and
PPE. What? Sanyu, continue from where she stopped. From where? With question 4 again. What are the
practices, protective measures?
And PPE necessary to minimize the risk. Those are the protective equipments necessary to minimize the risks. See, now these 4 questions we now actually try to remind us of when you are going to the laboratory, you have to ask for yourself these 4 questions. if you're to go to the laboratory, you have to ask for yourself those 4 questions. Then, which means after asking these 4 questions, these 4 questions will enable you to keep calm, allow you to follow the lab safety rules. After those 4 questions you have posed to yourself, they'll enable you to keep calm and or even follow the safety laboratory rules. Now, what are laboratory safety rules? So we're now saying here laboratory safety rules. What are these laboratory safety rules? What do you understand by laboratory safety rules? Sad, you're most welcome. Though you are late, we have not gone far. We have just actually started. Sad saying from the chat that it is late. We are here now on what we mean by laboratory safety rules. Sad, see your hand is up.
Yes, what in laboratory safety rules means that the rules you must follow to so that whatever you're doing in the lab can go smoothly and safely. And safe.
For smooth carrying out of engagement, these are the things that you follow. That is according to Kyle. Any other passion? Shalom. What can you say? In case you have problem with your microphone, you can be able to put your contribution in the chat. We have the chat section, I think, where you can be able to contribute. Whatever you wish to say, you can type in there in the chat, and then I will be able to also go through it.
Excuse me, teacher. Please, can you repeat the question?
What is lab or what is laboratory safety rule? What is your understanding of laboratory safety rule?
These are rules to prevent.
Can I give my contribution?
These are rules put in place.
Allow Shalom to chip in her answer, and then I will be able to give you the chance.
Okay.
These are rules.
Laboratory safety rules are rules or steps one should follow to prevent lab accidents.
Steps followed to prevent lab accidents, correct? John? John, your hand is up.
Laboratory safety rules are rules we must follow in the lab in order to keep safe.
For safety, Shubi, what do you say?
Laboratory safety rules are rules put in place to prevent lab accidents.
Isaac.
Laboratory rules are rules put in place to prevent lab accidents.
So there are rules put in place to prevent lab accidents. So those are now what you people have been able to say. I want Claire to read for me what I have. What is laboratory safety rule there? Claire, you read?
A laboratory safety rule is a principle or regulation governing actions, procedures, or devices intended to lower the occurrence of risk or injury, loss, and danger to persons, property, or environment.
So It is
If I'm saying I've sung the wrong word.
those could when you are not the one contributing, I encourage that we always mute our mics. Okay? When we are not the one contributing, I encourage that we mute our mics. So we're saying laboratory safety rule is a principle. It is a principle. So you see, when we talk about a principle, which means it is something very key that is always, Kyle, put your mic off, and Joan, put your mic off. A principle is something which we always, once it says this, we're supposed to follow it. A regulation is also another. So a rule, a safety rule is a principle or regulation that governs actions. For actions, we're not talking about what we do. Okay? For actions, we're not talking about what we do. Procedures. This give us steps. Someone just talked about steps. You now see all our answers are correct, and then they're not coming in here. The procedures give us the steps. The devices give us now the apparatus or the things that we're able to use there. They say now the principle or the regulation governing this, and then intended to allow, to lower the occurrence of risk. So when you always go to the lab, you find there's a lot of risk. But when you follow the regulations or the principles, which we now say the safety rules, you lower that risk. Or injury. See, you can even get injured while in the lab if you're not very serious about following the rules. Or it is something which is intended, something you intended to, you have intended to do in order to reduce or to lower their loss. When we are looking at lab apparatus, the common laboratory apparatus that we usually have, who can give for me one of the examples of those which are very delicate? One examples of the delicate apparatus in the lab? Can mention for me? Who's putting up the hand? Isaac?
The Bunsen burner.
Bunsen burner. Bunsen burner. Bunsen burner, is it very delicate? That Bunsen burner, we did look at it, but is it very delicate? When it falls like this, it easily breaks, or that is what we call, or we can say to be delicate. Kyle.
Thermometer.
Thermometer, very good. See, when a thermometer drops, that can be the end of it all. Drops on the floor. If it is a cement floor, that is the end of it all. If it is a tile floor which is tiled, that is the end of it all. See, it breaks, so we lose it. Hannah.
Test tube.
Test tube, very delicate. See a glass. Once it goes to the ground, forget, it is gone. Joan.
The road glass.
Hey, see, that is when it just falls down on a glass surface, on a just very hard surface, for instance, that from which is cemented, it has gone. So we lose it. Sanyu is also trying to put up hand there. Sanyu, what else? Any delicate? A beaker, especially the what? The glass one, a glass beaker.
Yes.
A glass beaker. Hey. So those are some of the delicate. And then we are as we continue there, John, put off your mic. As we continue there, and then we're saying the danger to passions. Okay? We are only intended to lower the occurrence of risk or injury or loss of those things, but now also the danger to passions. First of all, you who's carrying the experiment, those things we're trying to do, or when you follow the safety rules, you are reducing the danger to yourself. There are certain things when you do in the lab, they can lead to, they can actually expose you to certain risk, or they expose you to injury. They can even, there are certain chemicals that can even lead to loss of your life. John, I see your hand is up. John, I see your hand is up.
That's a mistake.
So, so we're saying the danger to passions, and then we can also have the danger to property. We don't want to lose the property. When you go and light anyhow, see, when you just go to the lab, you anyhow go to light the Bunsen burner. A lot of the flame goes into the air, and then it finds that maybe the room is not organized well. You see, you can set the whole lab on flame. You can set the whole lab on flame. We are also stopping that danger to our environment. When you just don't handle those things well, you will be able to what? Destroy our environment. For example, those chemicals, after you have done an experiment with the chemicals, how do you decompose it? How do you keep the one you have used? Do you think the one you have used is very good to the environment? Do you think that you have used is very good to the environment? So as you try to do this, so what you can do is you need to, Joan, you mute your mic.
Mama, it is unmute.
So we are avoiding all this danger to the environment. So in short, we now say the laboratory rule is a principle or regulation governing actions, procedures, or devices intended to lower the occurrence of risk or injury, loss, and even danger to persons, property, or the environment. Now, if we follow these rules, you will not be able to endanger the life, you'll not be able to lose anything, you will have saved a lot, there will be no risks, there are going to be no losses. I want us to suggest some laboratory safety rules in physics. Laboratory safety rules in physics. Things that you're supposed to do that will stop you from getting the injury, that will stop you from losing anything in the lab, that will stop you from endangering the persons around you, that will stop you from destroying the environment, where all of you are going to be fine. What are the things that we're supposed to do? I want us to, who's starting? Shanyu.
Do not carry out any experiment without a teacher's permission.
Do not carry out an experiment without a teacher's notification when they have not told you to do it, correct? Isaac?
Let everything in the lab stay in the lab.
What is in the lab? What you got there, let it remain there. What is there? What was there in the lab, let it remain there. Shubi?
Equipment marked with a hazard label may only be used with a supervisor.
There are some of those equipments that are marked with some labels, showing they're very dangerous. So they should be used under close supervision of those who have knowledge, especially the lab, the lab technician, and of the teacher. Hannah.
Any accident in a laboratory should be reported to the supervisor immediately.
In case it happens that there's an accident in the lab, report immediately. Very good. Sanyu again.
Do not leave the gas taps open.
Hey, these are very technical ones. Gas taps, when you leave them open, you see the oxygen is already going. You know what supports burning is oxygen. So when you leave the gas taps open, oxygen is already going in the air. So maybe the moment when you just, maybe light can, it can lead to the whole, setting the whole of the lab on a flame. So when there's oxygen in the air, no oxygen supports burning, you know what will happen. Kyle.
Absolutely no horseplay or joke.
Shubi.
When using main electrical equipment, first check for any damaged wires or plugs.
Joanne, we are just, these are some of these are all correct.
You should
Joanne.
You should clean the apparatus after use.
Clean the apparatus after use. Shanyu.
Do not touch an apparatus without the teacher's permission.
Not touch an apparatus without teacher's permission. Very good. Isaac.
Playing with the apparatus should be prohibited.
I beg your pardon. I've not got you clear.
Playing with the apparatus should be prohibited.
No playing with those apparatus. Joan. Joan, your hand is up. After talking, you should mute your mic. Those who have not contributed, you can be able to, you have problem with your mic, put in your contribution in the chat. I'll still get them. Meanwhile, Sad's hand is still up.
Yes, no gum or food allowed in the lab.
Hey, there are some of you who are very tricky. When you go to the lab, you sneak some nuts in the pocket, you go and eat there. It's very dangerous. You're not supposed to eat, okay, in the lab. That's what he's saying. Shalom, you're back. Shalom. I want us to exhaust all those that we can be able to say. Shalom, what else is that you're supposed to follow while you're in the lab?
Gas cylinder valves should be closed after use to prevent explosions.
This was just mentioned, so she actually made us to understand it better. You can put off your mic. Anisha, you are not spoken. Let me give you this chance. Anisha, unmute your mic and then we can be so that we can be able to get you. Anisha is saying from One of my, yeah, don't smell or taste the chemicals. Someone saying don't smell or taste the chemicals. So which means when you're there, some of you who like
Use eye protection
testing.
or glasses or spectacles hitting anything.
When you're hitting, you should be using those protections, protective gadgets. So especially those ones you put to the on your eye.
Use eye protection.
We've got you, Kyle.
Yes, do not work alone in the lab.
Do not work alone in the lab. Now we're going to. Kyle, is there still another that is remaining? You can go on to give us. Flavia. Flavia, what are some of the rules that you would suggest that we are supposed to follow?
Please follow instructions carefully when carrying out an experiment.
Very good. Follow instructions carefully when carrying out. Isaac.
Ask for help in areas you don't understand.
Ask for help in areas you don't understand. You now see this. So you'll find that when we follow this, when we follow those that you have mentioned, we are now going to, we shall, Flavia, you mute that mic. When we're now able to follow all those that we have just mentioned, you realize that we shall now be able to lower the occurrence of risk. We shall be able to avoid or lower the occurrence of injuries. We shall be able to lower the occurrence of losses. We shall be able to lower the dangers that we have to persons, property, or the environment. So, which means following up those accurately is very important. One of the lab rules that I think we just mentioned is this. You are to wear proper lab attire when doing an experiment. I want to ask a question here. When you're going to the lab, are you supposed to go with a jacket?
No.
Are you supposed to go in a suit?
Yes.
No.
Which lab attire, what type of lab attire do you have to put on? What do you always call it?
Lab coat.
We have the lab coat, okay? I know many of you have always had access to the hospitals. You see how those people in the hospitals that actually deal with the operation, how they dress up. Or those ones who always, it is those ones who usually work in the lab, they have the lab coat. So it is very important. You must always put on the lab attire when doing an experiment, correct? That is what some of you mentioned. Cedric, read for us this, the second point. Cedric, are you with us? Kilia, you can help us and read that. As we continue to move on, we'll encourage that those who are attending, you put your name in the chat and your contact. It is put your name in the chat and your contact. Flavia, read for us that second point.
Treat all lab equipment with respect throughout the experiment.
Yeah. So someone will be asking a question, but how do we respect the lab equipment? See, some of you'll get one lab equipment from one shelf, and then after using, you take to a different shelf. That is very bad. You have to treat all the lab equipment with respect throughout the experiment. So you do them carefully. See, when we talk about respect for each other, we usually mean that maybe when you are talking to the other person, which means for you, when you are talking, the other person has to be listening. When you're also listening, the other person will have to communicate so that you effectively understand yourselves. So for this now equipment, they cannot be able to talk. But what they do is now, as you use them, you give them all the respect they deserve. Where you got it, whether you got it disorganized or you got it clean, you got it clean. So which means after using, you have to put it clean. Hannah, you read for us the next. You read for us the next because your mic is on. Then after which you put
with broken glass, do not touch it.
With the broken glass, do not touch it. With the broken glass, do not touch it. So when the glass is broken, don't touch it. What do you do? Because you're not supposed to touch it. What do you think you can do? What is the best way to go if the glass is broken? Because they say don't touch it. What do you think you should be doing? Who can just mention?
To clean it up with lab gloves.
To clean up with the lab glass.
Glove.
It is a very good. The glove. The best thing you can do in this case is you report. Is that okay? You report. You report in case there's a broken glass. You report to whoever is in charge. So the person who is in charge is going to, maybe the lab attendant or the teacher. So that is the best way. This other one is, we have the next point. I want this one to be read by Isaiah, being quiet.
No eating or drinking is in the lab. Yes?
No eating.
No
No eating or drinking
inside the lab.
I just said some of you like sneaking to the lab with some eatables. So you want to sneak to the lab with it. So it is not allowed. So when you go to the lab, you're not supposed to go and eat there. You're not supposed to drink there. Even there are some of you who go to the lab and then you think now, when you get thirsty, you must be taking the water from the lab there. That water in the lab is not very safe for drinking. Don't drink it. Is that okay? Someone just elaborately said this. Never run or push or engage in horseplay of any kind in the lab. You know, some of you will go in the lab and then you start running around, pushing things there and there. You engage in some kind of play, and then you end up not for, you will not have followed the rules. You have not followed the rules, because when you run, you can easily hit something. You can get injured. You can cause even loss. You can break apparatus and so on. So you're not supposed to run around in the lab. When you are dealing with the liquids, especially heating them, you heat them slowly. When you're heating them, as you do that slowly, you needed to cover, if possible. If possible, you needed to cover to avoid sputtering. You know, when the heating has gone to some level, you find those particles will begin to vibrate at a very high speed. As the particles of the liquid vibrate, see, I mean, the move, there's going to be movement as they move, because heat in there has given them some energy. They're energized. So to avoid that sputtering, which may even go into your eye, which may go into one of your body parts, and then you may get burned. You need to avoid heating at very terrific speed. Do it slowly. One of the apparatus that we were able to use was tongs. These are used for handling hot substances in most cases. So when something is very hot, you first need to handle it using that pair of tongs. Use the tongs to handle the containers, objects, or materials that are hot. The most important rule you are supposed to follow in the lab is this. San, you read for us that rule. San, you read for us that rule? Shobe.
Yes. Follow instructions carefully.
All of this is about, if you don't follow the instructions carefully,
always heat liquid slowly or cover to avoid sputtering.
Yeah, we're already we're done with that. Good. Then the next is this is one you need to learn about. This is also one important thing you need to know. I want Flavia to read this. Flavia,
Always heat liquid slowly or cover to avoid sputtering.
The last one here on the screen yet.
Learn about emergency.
After you have followed maybe instructions careful. Responses. Learn about emergency responses. Next side. Next, Kyle. Kyle, what is the next?
Adhere to electrical safety guidelines.
What is the meaning of adhere? What is the simple meaning of adhere? In a simple, I can just say follow.
Adhere.
Follow the simple. Adhere to means follow. Follow the simple electrical safety guidelines, which means you are adhering to. Now, those are some of the safety rules. Those are some of the safety rules that we have in the lab. Now, do you think it is important? Do you think it is important to have these safety rules? So what are the importances of now laboratory rules and regulations? Now, knowing that when you are running in the lab, you should not run in the lab, you should not eat in the lab, you should dress. What are the advantages of doing all those? Can we just discuss this in 3 minutes? Can we discuss this in 3 minutes? Could we discuss that in 3 minutes? The advantages? Joan, what do you think is the advantages of following the rules and the regulations of the lab?
It prevents injuries in the lab.
Prevent injuries in the lab? I think that is correct. Very good. Isaac.
Shami.
Isaac. John,
prevents,
put off the mic.
it prevents destruction of property.
Destruction of property. Very good. Shubi.
It prevents lab accidents.
Accidents. Correct. Claire.
It avoids the breaking of laboratory equipment.
Yes, safety. At least we can be able to secure our laboratory equipment. That is true. Another? Joan? Another advantage or importance? Joan. Claire?
They enable us to know the do's and don'ts in the lab.
You see, you get informed about what you're supposed to do. When information, get informed is one important thing you should not forget. Shobi.
Sure, that was
So let's look at some of the here. One important thing as a result of following the laboratory rules and regulations is this. It really can save lives. Just imagine if you had not, we said the gas taps should be what? Closed after use. If someone leaves the gas taps and then an explosion happens there in the lab, what do you think will happen? People will die. Isn't it? People will die when you don't close. Yes, when you don't close the gas taps, then the explosion happens. People will die. So by closing the gas tap, you have followed one of the laboratory rules, but you have saved what? Lives. Next, it actually protects our property. It protects our property. So this goes hand in hand with the equipment. Our buildings are protected. The whatever is inside is protected. Besides this, the equipments the apparatus that we use for carrying out the experiments are protected just because of following these rules and regulations. Next, we have that it ensures accurate record keeping. I will just say here that you will find that when a glass gets broken here, and then you notify the teacher or the lab attendant or whoever is in charge, you have saved this person in terms of record keeping. This person will be able to know that what had broken is what? Test tube. So the number of test tubes has now reduced by this. So this will mean that because we have this number of students, as we're going to come next time, because others are broken, there's need to what? Stock more. So it enables actual also stocking. And this comes from what you do. So when you will be entering your lab and then you happen to break something, don't hide there. Some of you will hide, say, I don't want to pay. It is not for the sake of it, but you're ruining your future. See, next time you'll be the one to miss that particular gadget or the equipment in an experiment because you did not report when it got broken. Is that okay? So when you will be when you will go to the lab, something gets broken from you, you report it. It is taken note of for record purposes, and then it will save you as you come for the. There are some people who actually started their career in lab work. So it helps to start your career in lab work. So the career in laboratory work, you will become laboratory. Some of you will go and work in labs in hospitals, go and work in a lab, even in schools. In the new future, you go and work lab in industries, in factories. So it all starts from there. So those were actually what we really needed to learn about. This, just know that it is very important to follow laboratory rules and regulations. Now I'm going to give some, we have the activity of integration for this, but if you had, for those who had enrolled, those who have enrolled would get it in the advert, but for the sake of others, I will be able to give for that activity. I'll post it on, in fact, in our WhatsApp group there, you'll be able to do it. It is on the first chapter, which is physics introduction, where you have laboratory rules and regulations, the laboratory, why we study physics, and basically definition to physics, including the branches of physics. So you need to, those who are still thinking of what to do, we encourage you to subscribe, because I think soon or later we shall be ending these free lessons. So we encourage you to subscribe to Yaka at only 500,000 settings. We had some training for the parents, even with you. I think you were able to learn how to subscribe to Yaka, and you learn for the whole year, or for one class like this at 500,000. This is like what you used to have in the school, the 3 terms, first term, second term, third term. See, in each of these terms, you used to pay their fees. But for Yaka, we have broken that. The whole class year is just 500,000. You have interaction like this. You'll be having access to courses or subjects even on the website. We mark and grade your assignments, quizzes. You get them also from the website there. You log in and then you find it there. So for, if you don't want, and then the other things, if you want to go beyond this, you can download a single subject for either primary class or secondary one at 10,000, or you want all the subjects for one primary class, it goes for 30,000. For one secondary class, it goes for 500,000. Then you can do this alongside accessing some of the most interesting also as well, or more interesting learning for notes. You have these notes include videos from Educare. Then we have, first of all, 2 days free access when you first sign up. Then sign in, you have 2 days free access. This is followed by, maybe if you have 20,000, you can subscribe for 1 month. If you have 50,000, you subscribe for 3 months. If you have 70, you subscribe for for half a year, which is 6 months. If you have 100,000, you subscribe for 1 full year. But these services of Educare are where you don't have live classes like this. You don't engage yourself with in interaction with the teacher like this. So you will only be following them from the website. You'll be following things from there. So that is what I wanted to say about this. So I really thank you for listening and active participation. Have a very good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bernard, you can end the lesson.